Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I'm going to do a little disassembly and maintenance on this little guy right here. This is the Spyderco Knives Kapara. So, this guy literally just came out of the package. In fact, if you look carefully, you can still see some of the oil that was slathered onto this guy by the Taichung factory. And so it is just factory freaking fresh. However, as always, both so you can see what's going on inside the little guy, as well as so I've got everything on sort of an even footing, I'm going to go ahead and do the disassembly anyways, and see what we can do here. But to start with, it is dead centered here. The action on it is maybe a little slower than I'd like. That will absolutely improve over time and smooth out over time, but there you go. And let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Wow. Having a day. So, yeah, this is insane. Look, at some very real level, it's completely and totally freaking nuts. That, you know, the moment I get a pocket knife, the very first thing I do is disassemble it. In fact, I once had a maker tell me directly to my face, you know, Nick, and this is a person who I know does generally appreciate my work, but said, you know, that's the most negative effect that I've had on the knife world is that the trend of people getting something and then immediately taking it apart. And especially people who don't necessarily know what they're doing. Because, you know, especially, you know, it can certainly be the case, especially for more budget-friendly pieces, that, you know, the factory worker isn't going to put it together with as much care as you will, just because you can really take the time. You can luxuriate in it, whereas they might not be able to. But there are also cases in which you simply don't necessarily know how to put the damn thing together, and especially inexperienced folks. And so, you know, this person was kind of lamenting the fact that many people are now just like they get the knife and suddenly we're going to take it apart. And I can see that frustration for him. Said, you know, there were often cases where, for instance, the person is... you know, it ends up causing them trouble or something like that. They have to send the knife back as a bag of parts. Not necessarily a great thing. I've done this a lot. I'm not saying that makes me an expert. I'm just saying it, you know, is a thing. But nevertheless, that's definitely something to consider. A couple of things to highlight here. They are using a new thread locker over in Taichung. This is a blue thread locker. It looks like they got themselves a hold of some blue Loctite, which is a beautiful thing. The stuff they were using before was white in color, and it was also a little bit more aggressive. This new stuff, although they're certainly laying it on thick, seems to work very well and, you know, doesn't seem to be causing any trouble. We've pulled these guys off using a T10 driver for the pivot and T8 up here. So, there you go. Let's go ahead and try and get this guy popped apart. Now, this is a Taichung-made compression lock knife. These can occasionally be a little tricky to disassemble just because tolerances tend to be tight. And so lifting things off, and especially when there's a fair amount of thread locker in play, it may well be the case that the liners are Loctited to the pivot, etc. But, you know, we'll see what we can do here to pop this guy loose. Okay, there we go. I felt some things starting to shift. And really, that's the process here, is you're just shifting things around, using very little force. You really don't want to use much force here. Unlike this, you know, in Star Wars, where you want to use the force, here you do not. I think I've probably made that joke too often in these videos, but whatever it is, I'm just sort of jiggling back and forth on a very slow time scale here, being mindful of the fact that I've got an open blade out here, which is not necessarily ideal. But I'm just kind of doing my best to get everything sort of unseated, because that's what you're doing here. You've just got things, you know, on 3 parallel pins here. Up there, you need to pop everything loose. Okay, great. So we've got this scale here. And we can see this really thick oil that Taichung, well, not thick, I'm sorry, this really heavy coating of oil that has been on the last couple of Taichung-made knives I've had on the table. I also had a Techno 2 that came in, and as far as I know, well, certainly mine came with a liberal coating of oil, like on the titanium even. Not like inside the pivot, but just like the entire knife had a sheen to it. But, yeah, so that's definitely a factor. You can see it's all up in there. Maybe it's by design, just to prevent rust and that kind of thing on these liners under the carbon fiber. And by the way, look at this. This is carbon fiber through and through, which is nice. It's attractive CF too. This is a pretty knife, certainly. I'm really curious to see how I'm going to end up feeling about it. It's like very first impressions. Literally, I've like flipped this guy 4 or 5 times here before I did this, because, you know, I want to try and take it apart before I give it too much carrying. That way I know sort of the situation. Wow, this is really kind of wedged on there. Come on. It's these 2 screws in the back here. So what I'm going to try and do now, oh, wait, hold on. This is the pocket clip loose now? Yes, it is. Okay. So the pocket clip is actually attached to the other end of this Chicago screw, which gives me an ally in the battle against this screw being wedged in there, because now watch what I can do there. I'm using the pocket clip on the other side here to pop this guy through the liner there. So now we have just one point of kind of pressure here. And so we can do something like this, which allows me to rotate it out of the way. I'm going to take the blade and just set it down so it's out of play. And now all I need to do is that, and we're good. We're all set now. Hey, that actually worked way better than I expected it to. But what that does mean is that we're going to want to make sure and put the clip back on in this orientation when things are being reassembled. One thing I have to highlight here is that we're using nice big hardware on this guy. T8 screws in the back, T10 on the pivot. No arguments there. That's always a nice thing to see. Otherwise, we are looking at an S30V blade here, which is absolutely fine. We are looking at, looks like beautiful Taichung machining here. One thing I will highlight very much is that this guy, unfortunately, although they seem, this is not a chamfered, I'm sorry, this is not a stonewashed knife. As, you know, for instance, with the Techno or something like that that has that mirrored stonewash, the stonewashing process breaks this little edge on the inside there. And unfortunately, this does not have that edge broken. So what I'm actually going to do is, Spyderco was kind enough at one point to send me this little set of ceramic files. And so while I've got the knife apart here, I'm just going to slide this in here. I'm going to break this corner here and break this edge. This is something, I forget which knife it was, but one of the Spyderco Taichungs recently that I had on the table actually had a factory chamfer on the inside of that hole there. But which one was that? Was it the brow? No, it was the amalgam, I think. It was in that batch. Either way, I hope that that's something they're going to do a little more often, because the sharp Spidey holes are never a great thing. However, unfortunately, it's very easy to put little tiny hairline scratches on this if you accidentally drag this across the face of the knife. So that's not great. But yeah, so I'm just kind of putting a little corner on there. And the nice part about doing it this way is that it sort of gets both sides. And there we go. This should just make it a whole lot more comfortable to use. And just putting a little tiny micro... Yeah, see, that's way better. Although it's still a little sharp up at the top here. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. Beautiful. Now, it's a little detail, but it's one of those things that can be a substantial quality of life improvement for a pocket knife. You just need to be a little careful as you're doing it. Not use too much force, etc. You know, honestly, that's one of the nice things about these kinds of disassemblies, you know, is that generally speaking, the factor at play here is gracefulness, not force. You want to, as you're taking this guy apart, and you're taking any pocket knife apart, generally speaking, the better solution is never to, you know, really crank on it. You're not using crazy amounts of torque. You don't need, you know, crazy wrenches, etc. These are put together with subtle hand tools, with a freaking screwdriver. They're put together, and so very, very seldom would you ever really need to use a lot of, like, force. And so me, being a relative weakling in terms of just sheer physical power, or the incredible Hulk I am not, you know, this gives me something that I can very easily do without that. And it also, you know, it provides a little bit of an intellectual challenge, so to speak. Like, okay, what's the best way to pop this apart without having a crank on it? So, yeah, maybe it's not so challenging to other people, but it is certainly a thing. So, okay, we've got everything popped loose here now. Now I'll just clean off these washers. These washers are going to polish up over time, so it's not really... And I could, if I was really interested, sit here and try and polish these washers a little bit manually. Like set them down on some strops loaded with some CBN compound or something like that, and see if I can, you know, smooth them out a little bit. But the simple fact is that I don't feel that need strongly. They will polish themselves out over time, and so, you know, why would I fight that battle right now? I might as well save the battles for a day when I need to fight them. So, okay, we are now all ready to set. Wow, that's good. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to use a little bit of on the inside of the... So there's this little area here. Do I need to pop? No, these are all Chicago screws. Here's what I'm going to do. This is not necessary. You probably don't need to do this at all. But since everything is already sort of unfastened, what I'm going to go ahead and do is pop the carbon fiber off the other side here. I'm going to clean off this thick factory oil, and I'm going to put in a nice coating of something that honestly I like a little bit more for corrosion resistance. I'm going to use a little bit of your frog lube paste, that is. Now, mind you, frog lube is not a lubrication. That's one of the things I dislike very strongly about frog lube, is the marketing is just not great. I mean, you can, I gather, use it for lubrication on something like a firearm, but that's not really the approach I recommend. I like it as a rust prevention sort of thing. Okay, we just had something drop out, and I bet it was the stop pin, and it rolled someplace. You go here. You go there, you go there, you go there. You're a stop pin. Then there was a little tiny pin that's around here somewhere now. Oh, here it is. It's still attached to this liner. Beautiful. But okay, so what I'm doing here is literally just going through, and I'm applying this paste. And what that will do is help to make sure, yeah, okay, that's the applied side. That'll just help to make sure that this doesn't rust out over time. I don't really expect it to, but, you know, that way... You know, I don't know. You know, folks, at some level, everything that I do here, I mean, is pointless. The knife worked fine coming from Spyderco. It's okay. There is no real problem. There's no real need to do this at this point in time right now. But the simple fact is that this is a tool... Even if this doesn't turn out to be a tool that I keep in the long run, and in fact, this one's going to charity likely, so I'd have to make an equivalent donation to charity to try and keep it, or buy another one and give that one away. But whatever it is, look, at some level, I feel like I owe my tools that kind of care. This is completely irrational. It's completely insane. I cannot really justify it in any reasonable universe. But the simple fact is that I do personify a little bit. I look at it and it's like, you know, I want this... I want to take good care of that which someday might need to take good care of me. And whether that taking good care of me is as simple as, you know... opening the box for the next pocket knife, let's be real here, or whether there's actually a situation in which this could be a major, you know, component of causing or preventing some major trouble for me, that's stellar. And I want that to be I want it to be ready for that. And so I figure that by taking a little bit of time here to make sure that these kinds of tools are in good position, basically, they're well maintained, they're kept in good health. Health? Oh God, now it has... Now it has an immune system. The irrationality just keeps dropping here. But anyways, I don't know. I view that as a helpful thing, as a good idea. So, yeah. One other thing to note, by the way, is that this is all of these three Chicago screws here are D-shaped, which is beautiful because that means that they don't spin. And so you won't ever need to tighten. In fact, it wouldn't do anything to try and tighten the clip from this side. Instead, you will tighten the clip basically by tightening the screw on the other side there. So, anyways, now I'm going to go ahead and do, well, actually, I'll do both sides, but I'll go ahead and coat this side with the frog lube here. It's just frog lube paste. I've got it off camera here, but, and it works just fine for these kinds of things. But yeah, I don't really ever expect this to be an issue, and frankly, I'll probably, like I said, if this is a tool that I end up keeping in the long term, I'll probably have it apart and maintained again before any real good rust could set in. But at the same time, like I said, I'm just trying to take care of it, right? It's silly. I'm silly. But that's okay. You know, at some level as a scientist, I struggle a little bit. Here we go off the rails. At some level as a scientist, I struggle a little bit with my own irrationality. Because no human is rational. It's just a simple fact. We're predictably irrational. That's a great book, by the way, Dan Ariely. But anyways, I struggle at some level with these things where I know I'm just like, yeah, I'm nuts. Because... yeah, but then at the same time, if something like this is bringing me joy, if having a tool I know in my pocket is well maintained, even if, you know, the level of care it takes for me to keep it in this condition is not, you know, is way beyond that, and I should be doing other good things with my life right now, You know, I don't freaking know. Doesn't seem like much is harmed, right? So, okay. I'm going to go ahead and drop on this washer, and I'm looking for the polished side here. So you'll always see with washes on a knife that's been well used that one of them is usually a little more polished than the other, and that's usually the side that ends up facing the blade. And so I'll drop that onto there. Now I'm going to use a little bit of knife pivot lube. This is a new lubrication sort of substance, if you will, that is out there, and although it's pretty much equivalent to nano oil in pretty much every way, one area where it does have a slight edge in my estimation is with knives on phosphor bronze washes, because it's a little bit thicker than the nano oil, but it's not so thick that it's problematic, so to speak, and that it slows the action down. So I like it a little bit more in that case. So I'll go ahead and X on Shabazz the whole thing here. Drop this on there. Beautiful. So anyways, even though this may be, even though this may be irrational, at the same time, if it's bringing me joy, then doing it at some very weird level could actually be viewed as rational, provided it's not causing, you know, significant harm to myself or others. But then again, yeah, apparently I'm causing harm to knife makers who are dealing with jackasses taking their knives apart 10 minutes after they get it out of the box from the factory. But that's, you know, I don't know. I'm okay with it. I'd be doing it myself non-film for a long time. Or if I wasn't filming it for you. So there you go. Okay, so now I got to pop everything back into position here. I'm going to go ahead and use this little driver here. And again, I'm not turning. I'm just using it to push. So I've got those two guys there in position. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up the compression lock leaf here. And by the way, this is a great illustration of how the compression lock works. The knife, when I close it, this little liner drops into this little gap there. Works beautifully. But anyways, lifting that guy up there, and now we've got everything able to kind of snap in place. And now the liner goes into place. This is all spread out. Beautiful. Okay. Now I drop this onto here. Now, get this snapped together here. Okay. Next step here is going to be to apply a little bit of thread locker to these screws. Do I need to remove the old thread locker? Maybe. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. So all I'm going to do here is just basically run these screws against this rag. And that's going to remove some of the gunk that's up in the threading of them. Again, necessary? Probably not. But here I am, right? It's funny, you know, I've said many times that these disassemblies are maybe more for me than for you. But there's a level of joy here. Taking something that's good and making it run maybe a little better. At least usually it comes out a little better. But, yeah, there we go. Okay, so I put a little thread locker on here, and if you're ever curious about the tools I'm using for this disassembly, go ahead and check out my knife disassembly toolkit video. Now, okay, keep in mind that I got the blade in here and out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this in here, but in order to get things actually properly aligned and working, I need to be damn sure that the clip is in position, that it's kind of in those two little slots there, because otherwise it's going to be trying to pull this other screw into position here, and it's not going to be doing that. So, okay, now we can see it's tightening things down, and we are good to go. Now the clip is good and secure, no problem. Clean this off. No, I already did. All right. Or maybe I didn't. We'll find out from the comment section. Ay, ay, ay. By the way, holy lanyard hole, Batman. You can put, like, freaking carabiner through there. I don't know what it is lately with Spyderco and lanyard holes, but oh, man. All right. So let's then put the pivot into position here. Did I clean the pivot off? No, I don't think I did. Oh, and I need to switch to D10. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. You know, there's a little bit of old thread locker up in there. I'm going to see if I can get at that. I'm just using this little watch spring bar tool. It's a very mild steel. Mild steel, of course, being the term for steel that is not spicy. I really would like to see that become the term, the accepted term in knife making. You got mild steel, and then you got this hardenable, spicy steel. Guys, apparently it's been a long day. I didn't even realize this, but it's been a long day, apparently. If I'm talking about spicy steel over here, oof. I better get off camera. 20 minutes for a freaking compression. I'm luxuriating in this one, okay? All right, beautiful. So, right now it's going to be way too tight, but that's okay. Yeah, that's way too tight. But the centering is pretty much dead on, which is good. And you got to make sure you're turning the correct side here, because if you turn and it's not moving, that probably means you're turning the side with the D shape in it, and that's not going to do you any good. Okay, that's less too damn tight, but it's still too damn tight. So let's make it a little damn looser. There we go. Now, this is absolutely a good working tension here, but I feel like I might be able to loosen it up a little more. Yeah, we're still dead centered here. God, Tai Chung does good work. And get it to a point where it's a little free droppery. Okay. No play. Let's see if I can go a little looser. He says, tempting fate. A little looser. This, like I said, will smooth out over time. Wow, I can keep loosening down here. Okay, now that little last bit was the straw that broke the camel's back. So we're back to blade play country. Okay. This doesn't seem to be free dropping yet, but like I said, give it time. Once I work on this pivot a little bit, I suspect it'll get there. But okay, so, and by free dropping, by the way, I mean, like, for instance, this is the Spyderco Shaman, where it can just do that. This guy does not appear to be doing that. But that's okay. Like I said, it's factory freaking fresh. Triple F, if you will. But okay, so we have now disassembled, maintained, and really luxuriated in the Spyderco Kapara here. Hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your evening. Bye now.